in the end, we ended up raising over $629,000 for clean water, almost $630,000. That's crazy. That's nothing I could have done. I'm 13 years old. I don't have that much money sitting here in my pocket ready to give to Water Mission. But that's the God behind, and that's the people around.
Thank you guys for hopping on the podcast today, making a time in your schedules. We've got Kevin Herr, my friend for between 5 and 50 years, somewhere in there. Yeah. And our guest of honor today, Scotty Parker. And we're going to be talking about the big things you're doing, raising money for Water Mission International. Well, formerly Water Mission International.
That's right.
Excuse me, Kevin. Don't chastise me like you did previously. We're on air.
Yeah, I was going to say brand police. It's actually Water Mission now.
Right.
So we shortened the name.
I stand firmly corrected. And as we like to start any episode, we want to give shout-outs and give thanks to those that have helped us to be here today and also just be here kind of where we are in life. So, I'll start out. Kevin, of course, thank you for being on the air. Kyle Whitcroft, I was in conversation with him. Couldn't get him on today, but he's so busy organizing a big event that you'll share a little bit more about on the air today. But he's organizing the Walk for Water. But shout out to him, doing big things with Water Mission, raising money for impoverished communities that don't have clean water. And shout out to your parents for letting you come on the air today, man. I tell you what, right. And I want to hear your shout outs, but I tell you what, you're definitely the youngest one to come on the show. I don't think you'll be the youngest one ever, but you'll probably hold that title for a little while.
Yeah.
I don't have a trophy for you, I'm sorry. Or a medal. I can create a piece of paper, though, like a certificate.
There you go. Same thing, right? Ish.
Gold's kind of nice to have, too, but a piece of paper. But you guys have any shout-outs or any thanks you guys want to give?
Hey, well, I'd say Google, because back in 2009 when I found Water Mission, I just Googled it. And I was able to find it. And here you are employed. Yeah, here I am 8 years later. Just had my 8-year anniversary here at Water Mission. So shout out to Georgia Molly Green that caught God's vision for Water Mission and got it started. And now so many lives have been impacted through that, and mine's been a part of that. And shout out to people like Scotty who are continuing to come alongside and catch the vision and are able to kind of re-inspire me in my job time and time again.
For sure.
Yeah, so I got 3 people. Again, Kyle Whitcroft. I wouldn't be here today without him. He's the person who originally brought Water Mission to my attention, and he ended up embarking on a journey.
What a good move. What a good move on Kyle's part, man.
Yeah.
What if you hadn't done that? That's kind of
right. Where would we be?
Man, yeah.
And then mom and dad, because there's no way I could be here today without them. Not only letting me be here on the podcast, but everything that's happened throughout my life, they've always been supportive. And big shout out to mom and dad.
Yeah, that's so cool. I was talking to your mom too. Just trying to arrange schedules and everything. Because you can't drive yet, so hurry up and get your driver's license. But it's such a small world. I used to work, so I'm an engineer. I used to work right next door to where your dad's office is. So
wow,
very small world. Yeah, we've kind of crossed paths a little bit.
I think you should be able to pedal your bike at the speed of a moving vehicle, at least sometimes in that Somerville traffic, for sure, right?
Hey, Somerville traffic, sometimes that's stuff at dead standstill. It's faster to be on a bike.
You could go like 100x Somerville traffic right there.
There you go.
Shoot. Isn't that the worst when you're stuck in a traffic jam and all you can think of is, I could get home faster walking or biking for that matter. Yeah. I'm in like a $20,000 vehicle. Well, not me, but some people. And I could get home quicker walking. It's the worst.
Or running. Urban commuting. Urban hiking.
That's why I keep shoes in my car all the time, just in case. I just want to get in the breakdown lane, just run the rest of the way.
Nice.
Hey, nice. Kevin will do that. He's a crazy runner. I thought I was crazy, but I look on Strava, 6 miles, 13 miles. I'm like, man.
Dude, you doing half marathons on the reg now?
I did do one on a work trip over to California. I did 14.75 mile
0.75
hike / run.
Come on, you're getting that credit.
Up a mountain, yeah. I'm gonna take every quarter
with like
mile that I got.
200.7 feet elevation gain.
Yeah. Well, then I ran to work the other week, and that was a blast. 11.5 miles.
No joke.
And I made it over the Ravenel.
Dude, just because we're on the podcast doesn't mean you can lie about all these things.
I did this. Yeah, it was awesome. I'm totally thrilled, but I was inspired. I actually thought as I was running, I was like, if Scotty rode across the country, I can for sure run to work. Come on.
You always got to put in the context of if Scotty can ride across the country.
Honestly, I do that.
That's what I do with everything.
I do that. I do.
And so that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about Scotty. So you're 8th grade?
8th grade.
8th grade. 13, 14?
13.
13 years old. So we're going to be talking about, I'm interested in wanting to know your background and getting into triathlon because I do triathlon. I got into it when I was like 19 years old. I didn't even know what a triathlon was when I was 13. I didn't even know what running. I thought a mile was like long distance endurance. So I want to know about that. I want to know about that background a little bit. And I know you have a lot of inspiring things to say for other people that are your age or even 10 years older. Because like Kevin was saying, we get a lot of inspiration. We, people in our 20s, 30s, or whatever, we even get a lot of inspiration from young people that are doing things that we're like, well, we gotta up our game.
Exactly.
So we have that to talk about, and how you transition from using that gift of endurance to raising a fair amount of money. I'll just say that for now, a fair amount of money for water missions. So first off, so I want to know, you did a triathlon last week, 2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago in Florida. So I'm actually repping. You said you went to Claremont, Florida?
Claremont, yeah.
So I'm actually repping my Claremont, Florida shirt from like 20 years ago. But I want to know, how was that experience, and then tie that into, again, how you even got into triathlon in the first place.
Well, so that experience was pretty eye-opening because I'm used to competition here in Charleston.
Flat?
It's flat, and it's less competition. Where you go down to Claremont, there was people coming from different countries to race. And so, I ate some humble pie. But as a triathlete and as an endurance athlete, I just took that and I was like, man, what can I do with this? I wasn't really discouraged. I just knew I have to work harder because I have a race in May, which is actually my qualifier to go to Junior Elite Nationals. So it gives me something to work towards, and I know where everybody else is at. So, once you have a goal, it's a lot easier to train than just training in general.
Yeah.
And so actually getting into triathlon was actually brought about by clean water. So it all started out as a passion to bring people clean water. And so when I first learned, I had this crazy idea to ride my bike across the state of South Carolina, which actually wasn't originally an idea to ride. It was an idea to run. Because that's all I knew really how to do at the time. And
you were going to run across the state of South Carolina?
That was my idea. I mean, I was 10 years old. Crazy ideas come from 10-year-olds.
Goodness.
13-year-olds. We all have crazy ideas. But when I told my doctor what I wanted to do, he said, at your age, you're still growing. That amount of running would really hurt your body. But he's a great guy, and he knew I still wanted to do something. And he's like, how about a bike ride? I was like, what? He's like, you could ride your bike across the state. That won't hurt you in any way. And I was like, it's a great idea. So my parents were great friends with Ann Moore, who's my endurance coach, and they got me a schedule to get ready to train to go across the state, which I think we trained, I want to say 700 miles for the 218-mile ride across the state. So that's where I really got my first taste of the endurance kind of atmosphere.
You got your first taste riding a bicycle across the state of South Carolina. Okay, continue.
Yeah. And so Ann Moore actually mentioned triathlon once, and I was like, wait, what's that? So she ended up telling me, really neat event, and I was like, I want to try one of those. So I ended up doing my first triathlon, which I did terrible at, but I fell in love with it, and it's something that I really wanted to continue doing. So here we go again, crazy ideas. Now I want to do triathlons and ride a bike and run, outside of that. And so that's really where I kind of got my start in triathlon, and my love for the sport has really grown more and more as I've aged and got a little bit faster.
Yeah.
Everything's more fun when you're getting better at it. When you're not like the worst, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is really fun because you're winning, or at least competitive.
That's a good standard. As long as you're not the worst, you're having fun.
Yeah.
I think that's That's almost the best standard. The best would probably be even if you are the worst, you're still having fun.
Yeah.
But that's still a good.
But we all know, as competitive people,
I want to win.
You want to win.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be last. I mean, it's just.
Yeah, I still remember, man, because whenever you do your first triathlon, you tend to get this, this addiction to it.
Yeah.
And I still remember I did 2 or 3 the first summer I ever did triathlons. I did the sprint series, so I don't know if you competed at all in the James Allen sprint series.
I do that a lot. I'm actually hoping to start racing Open Elite in that, just because my age group, which is, I think I'm still too young for.
What is it, like 18 and under? Just like captures everybody?
It's 19 and under, but like their normal youngest racers like 16. And, there's not that many competing there. And I've gotten towards the top of that group to where, I want somebody who's better than me, just because, what's the fun in winning all the time or doing really good? I always like a good competition.
Right.
And I like people who are better because that makes me better.
Yeah.
So that's why I hang out with people like Kevin, who's a better runner than I am.
Well, I really do appreciate Strava because then you get to see other people and how they're doing, and you really are inspired to want to get out there. And, if I see your dad all the time on Strava, and I'm like, man, he's getting after it. I got to get after it.
Getting after it.
Yeah. So I'm always inspired by apps like that, it's not like a competition per se, but you can give each other thumbs up, and you can do it not only with people in your own area, but all over the country.
All over the world, too.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's another thing about triathlon that I really love is the challenge, and it's a goal, because you don't start out the best really at anything, but triathlons really let me see how hard training days really pays off on race day.
Yeah.
Because race day is really kind of a showcase of your training. So you're never going to have a good race if you don't train hard.
Right.
And that's something that triathlon has really taught me in life is, if you have a goal, then you actually have to work hard to get there. And the harder you work to get there, the better it's going to be when you get there. And the faster you'll get there and be able to set a new goal. But that's something I like is goals, setting goals like trying to catch Kevin.
Well, you set your goals bit by bit, and it's been neat to see you as you started when you were 7, hearing about Water Mission, and then those goals just being set and surpassed every time. You're like a pretty cool example of someone who is a goal setter, and then, through the power of Christ and everything, or seen those goals typically blown out of the water.
Yeah.
But something I always think is neat is how you first heard about Water Mission, some of that stuff, and then what was something in your mind that just kind of clicked with you that then made you say, hey, I need to do something about it? Because tons of people hear about things like this, but not everybody then goes from being a 7-year-old kid, carrying a lunchbox and getting dropped off at school by your mom to doing huge things like that.
Yeah. So when I really saw those first pictures, I saw kids. And I saw myself, because I knew that these kids that were drinking this dirty water, it wasn't a choice. They didn't do anything to get there, and they didn't deserve to be there. And I'm sitting here with all the clean water I could ever ask for, and they don't have a choice, which that's crazy. If we're gonna sit here, and they're dying. And they're just, and that could have been me. That could have been you. If this world was just a little bit different, we could have ended up without clean water. And how much do you think it would mean to you if somebody cared enough to do something huge and change your situation, bring you clean water, and bring you hope? And so, I mean, how can you not do something?
Yeah.
And
I mean, a lot of people hear it and they don't do anything though.
Right. Just. You got to think about it from their standpoint. They didn't do anything horrible to deserve the place they're at in life. Walking hours every day to get dirty water in the heat,
Yeah, there's almost a no-win in that situation. I mean, because what if we had to run a triathlon every time we got thirsty and we didn't even know if that water was going to be healthy?
Right. Run
It'd be so rough
to get dirty water.
Rough is an understatement. But
in the middle of the summer. It's hot.
Yeah.
Which is it's just crazy to me. Well, it would be crazy, to not do something. And one thing I always say is, we're all going to have that calling. And for me, it was water. For a lot of people, it's not going to be water. But, whatever that calling is, you should answer it because, with God's power, you can change lives. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Mm-hmm. That verse is really come to life through the ride and through this last ride. And, we really can do anything with the power of Christ. Whether that's riding your bike across the state of South Carolina to raise over $70,000 for clean water, or if that's just going through everyday life, God's always there. And those training days, if you're a triathlete, you have some hard training days.
Dude, I pray a lot.
Yeah.
Dude, just the other day after a 10-miler, which is not even where I need to be, you get that nauseous, I don't know if y'all get it, you get this nauseous feeling like afterward where you don't want to eat, but then you don't. You need to eat, and you're like, there's like some chance I might die.
Right.
I just start praying.
There's some chance.
There is some chance there.
Yeah.
Luckily, it hasn't happened yet.
And so it's those hard days where I just think about those kids, and I always remember Philippians 4:13, because it's never going to be too hard with the power of Christ. I mean, it's going to be hard, but it's never going to be too much with the power of Christ because you can do all things. And so if you set a goal, really in life, then you'll get there. But I'm not saying it's going to be easy because I know it's not easy. As a 10-year-old riding across the state, that was not easy at all. But it was the whole time just thinking about it. And think about where you're at in life. All of us here, we have that choice to go do those 10-mile whether it's a run, whether it's, you just want to go walk 10 miles. You can do that. These people have to do that. Mm-hmm. And just think about that. If you're complaining about something, complaining about your phone not working, why are you complaining?
Right. You got to put it in perspective.
Right. And it was crazy to me to know that there are people around the world, dying. And as a 7-year-old, I didn't know this, because I was kind of sheltered because that stuff's crazy. People are dying. But when I learned, I was like, why aren't we doing anything, And I couldn't live with myself just sitting there and not doing anything. So it actually started with a birthday. So for my 8th birthday, I asked family and friends to donate money instead of gifts, and I think we raised $618. I was 8. That was $1 million.
Nice,
yeah. That's
a lot.
Scale that for like age. That's $1 million.
But after that, I was super excited. We just saved some lives. But I couldn't sleep because I knew that $618 didn't just end the global water crisis. It brought a few people water, but it didn't bring everybody clean water. And so that's kind of where this cross the state ride came in, which raised over $70,000, and that's nothing I could do.
And how old were you for that first ride?
The first ride, I was 10.
You're 10 years old.
I was 10 years old.
What kind of bicycle are we talking about? Is this like a trek bike? Is this a mountain bike? What are you rolling on, man?
Well, so I was on a specialized. It was actually a woman's extra small hybrid.
I'm trying to think, man.
Women's extra.
Because I was
extra small.
I mean, I was tiny. I was nowhere the height.
Yeah, because those road bikes, they got big wheels, right? I mean, skinny wheels, big wheels. It's tough to get something for a young buck.
Yeah, I looked pretty funny because I was rolling on 29.
Dude, but if you were rolling by people on the road with like waving money in your hand, who's looking funny now?
Yeah.
But yeah, my parents didn't tell me it was a woman's frame. I figured.
Yeah,
they
told you
out
3
later.
years later or something.
Yeah.
Specialized, for those listening, is a brand of bike. It's not a.
Yeah.
It's not like a special bike. Kind of special though.
Yeah, they're pretty.
It's a nice bike, yeah.
I'm more of a Trek guy now.
Yeah, Trek's good. I roll Cervelo. Just happened to be what I bought on Craigslist like 8 years ago when I got started.
Yeah.
Cervelo's good.
I'm lucky to have parents who, buy my stuff for me. So and we're friends with the local Trek dealer. So that's what we rode across.
Nice.
The country,
awesome.
Which is what I was trying to get to here. And but after that state ride, I got to go to Honduras, and seeing pictures, seeing videos, and seeing it in real life is totally different. I mean, when we were there, just seeing those kids. One kid, his name was Hido, and man, this kid, it was like every time he'd hug you, it was like God was hugging you almost, because the love and the joy behind those hugs was amazing. Because, it seems simple. You just brought him clean water, but really, you just brought him life.
Yeah.
Because that means he can now live. He can go to school. He can hang out with his friends and not worry about the water he's drinking. And so he'd hug you. And, man, I'd cry every time he hugged me, because it was like, man, this kid's life is now changed.
Yeah.
And on that trip, I actually, after that trip, I couldn't sleep again, because $70,000 definitely didn't end the global water crisis. And so I actually think it was a news interview here after the ride, here at Water Mission, that I jokingly said, and it was a complete joke. I mean, I was dying I was dying laughing after I said it. I said, man, maybe one day I'll ride my bike across the country. And it was, that was crazy. That was nothing I would ever really think about doing. And then a few years, actually 2 years later, I was like, maybe we should really do that. Because, if God can do $70,000 with one state, what can God do with an entire country? And here comes this crazy idea. And so we trained for over 2 years, getting ready for that ride.
Wow.
I think we trained 8,000 miles.
There's something in delayed gratification we need to come back to and talk about. It's a long time to train for one event.
Yeah, it was a lot of long, hard training rides. And the thing about that was huge. It wasn't just the 8 weeks we spent this summer that I really had to give up, but it was the 2 years, because every day before school, well, pretty much every day, I'd get up and I'd run. And then after school, go straight to swim practice. Every weekend, got my long rides. And that was every day, every week.
So you were training for the ride across the country by running in the morning and swimming in the afternoon. Were you biking in the afternoons too, or?
Sometimes I would do some speed work or something, just to build those muscles for climbing. But most of the time it was just weekends, where swimming, that's a full body workout.
Yeah.
Especially being a triathlete, that some of those swims are tough. But that and running it was my, cross training, which, because, if you're sitting there riding a bike the whole time, it does get boring. I'll say that. Cycling does get boring. Running gets boring sometimes too.
Can, yeah.
Especially with Kevin, running those long distances.
Kevin, the marathon man.
It's not always that long, guys.
I mean, yeah,
Sometimes he drops it back to like 9 or 10 miles.
Yeah, just 6 for
usually
fun.
5.
10K in his sleep.
Just 5 for fun. I mean, the only time I really run is like 3 miles or something. I mean, that's really it, but it's fast.
And then he bikes 100.
Yeah. So you were running every morning. You'd wake up at like 5 o'clock.
Yeah, walk us through that training kind of regime, just for those who are like, I don't even know how a triathlon trains, and how does that look?
Yeah. So every morning, you get up about 5:30. You look at now I look at my phone on Training Peaks, which is a training app that my coach puts in my workouts, and it'd be about normally a 3-mile run. Nothing too long, but there'd normally be sprint sets in there on that middle mile. And then you come back, shower up, eat breakfast, go to school, sit there in the classroom for 7 hours.
Just sit there thinking about your next training.
Thinking about the hard swim practice, which I swim for Smart, which is Southern Marlins race team. And those practices are tough. I mean, I think right now my practices are, they're 5 to 6:30, so an hour and a half.
It's a lot of that's like getting into miles, isn't it? Like 2 miles of swim practice.
Well, for swim we look at it from yards. I don't know what the conversion is, but the longest practice I've ever done was, I think, 6,500 yards.
Yeah, 6.5. If we call those in meters, well,
you're an engineer.
Be a
Come
lot
on, convert that.
Well, 1,600 meters is a mile, so I mean, if that were meters, that'd be like what, 3-4 miles.
A lot of distance.
But yeah, those days, you come home tired.
Yeah, I had a buddy, one of my best friends in high school. He raced and he was really good. He did smart. He just always eat. He was always eating. He was always sleeping in school, in high school.
You ever ask any of my friends at school? They're like, "Man, Scotty eats like a pig, but he's still so skinny." Like, because I burn it. Because when you're running and you're swimming in the same day, my break was school. Science class. Go ahead and take a nap. Recovery time. Or health. Just make sure you sit at the back of your classroom and act like you're paying attention. But that's really your kind of rest. You
got to get the angle with the teacher and with like a large student in front of you. Yeah.
Maybe a few surrounding you, and you gotta have your you gotta have your best friend back there so you can kick your desk when the teacher is about to walk by.
If Scotty's mom or dad is listening, he's really just exaggerating this part because he was probably front of the class, like ready to learn. He felt so jazzed up by the physical exercise that his mind was sharp as a tack, and he's excelling in every way.
We're just making it more interesting for the podcast. No, this is real.
We're just playing around. So.
They are building something in the background.
So we're actually here in the Water Mission warehouse, which is a pretty cool setting. And if we're an active warehouse. We make water systems all over the world, and sounds like they're building one right now.
They are saving lives right now. Yeah, and we'll pan in some shots too of the water, and we'll talk more about the water tanks that you guys produce and export. So,
but yeah, so. Get your rest at school, go to swim practice, and swim practice starts at 5. So you throw your homework in there pretty much on the way to swim practice, and it's about 7 o'clock when you're eating dinner, and all my friends make fun of me because they're like, "Hey, you want to get on Xbox tonight?" I'm like, "Man, I go to bed at like 8:30."
You're like on grandpa and grandma time now.
Well, yeah, because when you get up at 5, you gotta go to bed early.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Especially if you're running, because, as the athlete who's going to be running the next morning, you pay for it when you stay up late, and which, that was pretty much every day, except for Wednesdays, because Wednesdays were pretty much my weekday off.
Kind of the middle of the week rest day.
I got Wednesday night church, so kind of your rest day, and get ready for Thursday.
Round 2 of the week.
Yeah, and then started out as about 20 to 30 mile rides on the weekends.
So about an hour and a half, call it.
And so by the end of my training, we were up to doing 100-mile rides on the weekend, which I think one of the questions I saw in the packet was my biggest race achievement, which was actually my capstone to my training for the cross-country bike ride, which was the assault on Mount Mitchell. So for those of us that are listening that aren't really cyclists, that's 102-mile ride. The year I did it, it was 104 because of road construction, with 11,000 feet of climbing up Mount Mitchell.
Wow.
Which is crazy. Crazy ideas come from crazy people. And so here we go with another crazy idea. And it was actually my birthday present. My parents were like, "Wait, what?"
Great present.
Just what I always wanted.
Yeah, because
an assault on Mount Mitchell.
Yeah, it was expensive to do that race. So I was like, "Mom, Dad, hey, for my birthday, can y'all pay for me to do this?" And they're like, "Sure." Wait, what? You want to ride your bike 104 miles up a mountain for your birthday? I was like, yeah. But in my mind, I knew that if I could do Mount Mitchell, then I could do anything that was going to be thrown at me on this cross-country bike ride. And I think, my time was 8 hours, 55 minutes, and 32 seconds. So I wasn't last, but I was definitely not first. But that ride, it was my first long ride without either of my parents. Neither of my parents did it with me. None of my teammates did it with me. It was just me and whoever else was out there crazy enough to do it.
Right.
So it was me and a bunch of strangers. And, I was 13. Well, I'm still 13. But when I did it, I was 13. And there was adults that were like, man, there's no way at your age you're going to make it up this mountain. But the whole time, I was thinking, Philippians 4:13, man, I can do this. What are you talking about?
Yeah, come on.
But I think it was mile, I want to say 95. I got to the last stop, and the last 25 miles of this ride are the steepest part. But the last 10 miles are, I think it's a 9% grade, which is crazy to ride a bike for 10 miles, much less after doing 90 something miles before it. And I mean, it was so bad that when I went to take my leg and swing it over my bike, it just locked up. I mean, everything just locked up in a cramp. And to the point where I literally just like rolled over on the ground and sat there for a second and took a hot shot, which for, again, non-athlete.
What is that, a gel? What is that?
Hot shot. It's a little small bottle and it's like cinnamon flavored. It's hot, but it's made to take cramps away.
It's like electrolytes.
It's cool.
I don't know what it is, but you take this hot shot and the cramp just goes away like that. But it's hot. I mean, it's so hot, like it
I
makes
need
my
some
eyes
of those. Good Lord.
But
Dude, you're selling right now. They're gonna pick you up for this.
But
Sponsored by Hot Shot.
They just go. The cramps just go immediately away.
I mean, they really do. But you pay for it with the kick. But I took one and filled up my bottles, and I called my mom. I was like, I'm at mile 95 or whatever. And, after she's like, man, I could tell in your voice, that you were dying.
Yeah.
But I wasn't about to quit. I mean, I felt like quitting, but there's no way after making it that far I was going to quit. So I ended up finishing. And being a competitive person, when somebody tells me I can't do something, then I'm like, yeah, watch me. But there was some of those adults who told me I wasn't going to make it that didn't make it. And in life, there's going to be those people. And when, to those listening, when you have a crazy idea and you want to, change the world, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to tell you, you're crazy, no way, never going to happen. Well, just take that and let them see, what God can use you for. Because, I had a lot of people tell me, there's no way you're riding across the state, or there's no way you're riding across the country. And I was like, I have a huge God behind me. And, just keep your eyes open.
Yeah.
See what God's going to do. And God even blew away my expectations. Was that Ephesians 3:20? Now to him who's able to do immeasurably more than we could ever ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's so true. And, I thought, that was a pretty neat Bible verse. But when you see that come into effect with a cross-country bike ride, with a goal to raise over $500,000, which none of us really thought was going to happen. We were thinking, if Scotty raises 200, that'd be awesome. That'd be amazing. That's a lot of clean water. But even in my head, the world had brought me down to thinking that wasn't going to happen. But God was sitting there laughing. Man, you got no idea. In the end, we ended up raising over $629,000 for clean water, almost $630,000. That's crazy. That's nothing I could have done. I'm 13 years old. I don't have that much money sitting here in my pocket ready to give to Water Mission. But that's the God behind, and that's the people around. And, my parents made that possible. Kyle made that possible. The people here at Water Mission made that possible. And there's no way I could have done that. And, sometimes I do get prideful, but it's all because of him, and it's all through him. And the reason why is people are dying. And so when you have a reason like that, I mean, nothing seems really impossible, because, it's in the Bible, it says it's not. And why are we doing this? To bring life and to bring hope to people, which is a great thing that Water Missions does. And I believe, sorry if I'm killing your questions here.
You ain't killing nothing, man. Keep going.
You're rolling.
But I believe one of the questions was, why Water Mission? Well,
wait, let me ask you a question first. I used to love when I would hear you got back from Honduras and everybody said Scotty's stump speech everywhere he was, what was it? Don't let me give it away. People around the world deserve the same thing I have.
Oh, yeah. So I'd always say, I want people to have what I have, clean water and Jesus. And then one thing that I always say but for some reason I forgot earlier. But when I first saw that picture, I would say it hurt my heart because I felt like I just been punched because they're dying, and so.
I always love the simplicity of, people around the world deserve what I have: clean water and Jesus. Keep it as simple as that.
Right.
People can connect to that, at all age levels.
Yeah.
Right. Keep it simple.
And so that kind of messaging really catches people where they are, and I think helps them gravitate to your sharing. And we've seen God do some amazing things through it.
Yeah. And through Water Mission.
Yeah.
Which what I was saying was. When I learned about Water Mission, they don't only bring this clean water system and drop it off, but when they drop off the system, they go through community development. They teach the community how to run the system, how to keep the system going, and at the same time, they share the living water of Christ with these people. And so not only are they saving their lives here on earth for a few years, but they're saving their lives eternally, and that's amazing. What else can anybody ask for? I mean, nothing really.
Right.
Which, if you want to say anything about, what Water Missions does here, Kevin, it just blew me away that there was people that cared that much to bring the living water of Christ into the community while bringing them clean water.
And we can talk about Water Mission whenever. One thing I want to point out about your story is so often, right, people see the big ride or they see this big climactic event, but they don't realize all the work that goes into that on the back end. Yeah. So it's 2 years of training to ride across the country. Nobody knows that you're training for 2 years. They just know you rode and they're like, oh, Scotty, that's amazing. I want to be like you. But I think that's where a lot of people, they get this idea in their mind I want to change the world, but they're not always willing to make the personal sacrifice that's required in order to actually see that. Even, when people see people at Water Mission like myself or whatever, we speak at this event or that event, and then they're like, oh, that's amazing. You've got the coolest job ever. I mean, they don't see the days and hours when you're just doing regular stuff. Most of the time, you're not in front of the crowd. Most of the time, you're not doing stuff that looks so amazing. But it's those moments when you do get to see, but people don't realize the back-end work.
The hard work.
And so especially for students, but really anybody at any age, it's you've got to be willing to put in pay the cost, pay that personal sacrifice of whether it's your time, whether it's your money, in order to truly make a difference and not just think, justice or clean water or any cause you get excited about. It's this cool thing that people will think, wow, this person's making an impact. It's going to take some work, and you're going to get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool where we can see in your story, you've put in the time, and God showed up. We've got tons of stories like that.
Yeah. That's a good point to at least pause there and recognize that. It's many have heard the Iceburg Principle. There's very little that you see above the surface that everyone gets to see, but really there's a whole 90% of work that happened that no one gets to see. And definitely triathletes are probably more than anybody, those athletes that they're grinding it out on a daily basis, usually twice a day. If you're really training for something that's difficult, you're training at least twice a day. And nobody knows that. Nobody knows you're going to sleep at 8 o'clock, waking up at 5:30. You're going to school. When I got into triathlon, I was at the Citadel in college, and now trying to figure out how to do it and still, have a job.
Yeah, try to figure that out and have a wife and have a family.
Yeah.
It's even more challenging. But
I'll be taking notes from you for future reference. I'd be appreciated if you just wrote a book or something.
Yeah.
Just put me in the dedication notes. And
I think Kevin should write a book.
Dude, what an idea. What a great idea, Scotty.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm the best example, but I could pull from other people's examples. Another thing I think is interesting is, you talk all about faith and riding, as you're tired and you're realizing God can do all things through me, through faith. I've had a lot of experience in doing some hard training where you do kind of fall back on your faith in those hard moments, and you're either reciting Bible verses to yourselves or songs. Faith and endurance sports is kind of a cool combo.
Yeah.
And I remember back in high school one time I was doing this run, And I ended up running into the middle of this thunderstorm, and lightning's coming down everywhere.
You ran toward the thunderstorm like storm chasers?
I thought it would go the other way, like the storm.
Kevin's crazy.
It just happened.
You thought it would go the other way?
Regardless.
Okay.
I ended up running down this long country road and into the middle of this thunderstorm that I thought was further away. And I remember I was scared, and like lightning's not following the road around me, but it's around. And I just started reciting the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And then over and over and over, as I was running, like every step, and it was probably the fastest run I've ever done in my life, because like I was so scared, but I was also so relying on God, like in this amazing way. And then I would always imagine God like coming around me like angel or something, like grabbing my arms and lifting me off the ground and making me go even faster. But I feel like people, I don't know, but I did go fast. Well, okay. And I survived and I made it out. But I think people in endurance type sports, you do, if you are a believer, I mean, you do kind of have these interesting experiences that really strengthen your faith, because you're going all out for something. It's cool.
And,
yeah, I agree.
For me, the hardest part of the triathlon is the run. Not only because it's last, but I mean, I'm a good runner, but I'm not the best.
Yeah. Well, nothing like running after you just biked,
Well, yeah.
50 or 100 miles or whatever.
It's those moments. My fastest triathlons are when I start cramping, because when I cramp, I start singing just praise and worship. And I mean,
what song? You have a favorite?
Yeah, what's on your playlist, dude?
Well, a lot of times it's "Reckless Love."
Yeah, all right. It's hot right now. Very hot.
I like that song. Let's see. Oh, and then "Do It Again."
Okay, Elevation Worship.
Yeah.
All right.
That song, man.
It's a top hit.
Just singing while you're running.
Yes.
And it's like, it doesn't make sense, from a science standpoint. You're running and you're singing at the same time. It seems like you'd be going slow.
Doesn't make sense. Okay, so you're literally singing out loud and you're saying, like, physically you shouldn't be.
Right. Physically you shouldn't be able to. But I'm sitting there and I'm singing. And it's amazing because it just gets your mind off of,
right.
how really hard you think this is, and it's just like, man, let's do this, and it's really neat. And something that endurance sports have brought to my life is, in those hard times, that's when that worship, you really feel it. But in everyday life, I can feel it too. It's like God's there for the huge cross-country bike ride or whatever, but he's there for the small also, because I'm still 13. I'm in the 8th grade. I still go through school every day of the week, and sometimes that gets hard because a lot of times I'll miss first period or second period or sometimes the whole day to go speak somewhere or go to a meeting somewhere about the ride or water. So when you're not at school and your mind's always occupied with sports, your grades don't tend to be the best. But it seems so simple, but at the same time, it's so hard. But you just got to know you can do it. No matter how bad your grades gotten and you got to pull it back up, or how tough your race is. He's there for the bigger and the small.
So I think it's interesting to point out, right? You're 13 now. You finished this ride. I mean, you've gotten a lot of publicity. Mm-hmm. What are some of those things? Like, you're speaking all the time at different events.
Yeah, I want to know more about that.
Talk a little bit about some of the places you've been able to speak and crowds, and how you kind of manage that with everything regular you're supposed to do.
Yeah. So I don't know how much really I can really control how my life goes, but I'm pretty packed with speaking. I mean, sometimes it's the news or the radio, but a lot of times it's me speaking to a group, me speaking to a classroom full of kids, or speaking on a stage.
Which is really impactful, having that physical presence there in front of people. Right. I mean, you're changing. People are going to remember that.
Right, and God's given me this gift of letting me do this stuff as a young person, because something that I really I've gotten is, I've listened to adults speak a lot, motivational speeches by adults. But when you're a kid, it's kind of hard to make that connection because it's like, this guy, he's an adult, of course he can do this because he's big. Well, when there's somebody your age or younger, speaking to adults is something I love to do because there's always this stereotype on kids that because we're smaller, we can't do as much as adults. I see that as a challenge, Look what God did with my life. No matter, and something I always say is, no matter who you are, what you've done, how old or young you are, God can use you to change the world. And so
it's good.
He could use me. And one thing I want to touch on before I continue about sharing is when I was younger, before I learned about this global water crisis, I couldn't say my sister's name, okay? My speech was so bad, I had to go through 3 years of speech therapy to be able to talk like I can now.
Wow.
And, look where I'm at now. I'm speaking with Kevin to Revolution, which was a Methodist youth conference up in Columbia.
That's right.
And there was, 2,000?
2,000 students,
25
Sick.
students. And I came from not being able to say my own sister's name, Lily. It'd sound like Yilly.
He was on stage at the Township Auditorium. It was the South Carolina United Methodist Revolution Big Youth Conference. And that place was just rocked by Scotty. And after, kids are just coming up like crazy, and the response was huge. They took the biggest offering they've ever taken as part of that event. But
many kids didn't have candy money that night.
Yeah.
There were no candy sales.
Yeah. I one time Scotty was giving a presentation here at Water Mission, and there was a group of probably 8th graders, right? I think they were 8th or 9th grade, and that were in there. Scotty didn't say at the beginning how old he was, so he's talking for a while, and I don't think they realized, this guy is 13, just like we are. And then at the end, I was like, tell him how old you are. He's like 13. All of a sudden, the whole crowd, just starts talking to one another, erupts. It's like, oh, my gosh, he's just like us. And so it's cool to see the way that kids can connect with that.
Yeah, for sure.
In a way that just an adult, even as engaging as you might try to be, you're not going to be able to have that same connection.
Right. And there's natural common ground.
And not only the kids, but the adults, because, compared to them, I'm a little guy, because they're way farther along in life than I am. I'm 13. I mean, I still live with my parents, of course. I don't make my own money. My parents buy me.
Scotty's on his own now. He's got an apartment.
I don't know. Pick up a few more sponsors, and I don't know. You can probably rent somewhere.
But
we just need to get you a bank account.
I still rely on my parents, for everyday life. And I did this crazy thing where, these adults are, they're living life. They're, large and in charge, and they're much farther along in life than I am. But when they have somebody like me come and share, then it's like, what? This kid did that, and he's 13. What am I doing? And that's a gift that, God's given me. And another gift is being able to speak like I can. I get compliments all the time on, how well of a speaker I am. That's not me. That's not at all me. I mean, the first time I meet somebody, that person probably thinks I'm mute or something because I don't say anything. But when I get up there, it's like God takes it away. And he just opens up the story of my life, the story of what God's done with my life. And that's amazing.
And so far.
Yes.
That's just so far.
Right.
Yeah.
It's almost, and I
pretty
get
crazy.
the question a lot. You rode your bike across the country. What's next? It's scary to me because what's bigger than riding across the country? I don't know. Never know with God.
Across the Milky Way.
Universe. The galaxy far, far away. Scotty
They're
wrote
going to make a Star Wars about this.
It's like a spaceship, but it's pedal powered. That's right.
Come on. Pedal powered spaceship.
Yeah. Or you could always go Alaska. You could Alaska down to Argentina. That would be quite the ride.
That'd be pretty cool.
Man. Bet there's some good climbs on that one.
Maybe bike across Africa.
Yeah, that would
That'd
be
be
awesome.
pretty hot.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably during the winter months.
Well,
do they have winter months, or is it just August year-round there?
It depends on where you're located. If you're near the equator, you probably have a rainy season and a dry season, but it's always probably fairly temperate.
That was a very articulate response on the weather. Thank you for that.
Hey, we got Kevin from Water Mission here. He knows everything over here.
It's like the Water Mission weather, man. Shoot. That was great. Yeah, so watch out for Ecuador. It's hot. They have rainy and dry seasons, but it's always temperate.
A lot of those places, too, it's just elevated based on the elevation. So if you're in a higher elevation, it's colder.
That makes it colder? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I did want to ask you this. Is there maybe one experience from the ride across the country that comes to mind for you that was really impactful, that kind of stands out?
Well, there's not just one. I mean, the whole trip for 52 days, there was amazing experiences. But one story I always share is this one lady. We're at a gas station, midday, kind of lunch stop, and this lady walks up and she hands me this $5. And we start talking, and she's like, "That's the last $5 I have. I just watched my nephew get married. That was going to be my $5 for my bus ticket, but I want you to have it so people can have clean water." What? That's all she had. And I mean, I was sitting there crying, trying to give this money back to her, because that's all she had. Like, that's crazy to me. But she cared, and she loved, the love in her heart to give all she had so that somebody else could have a life and have clean water and have hope. I mean, that's crazy, I mean, what? But that's just one example of what we saw this summer, the kindness, the joy. Because, in today's day and age, it's so easy to get negative about, society, where people are at, what people are doing. But it's the good. The good that's in our country, that's in, all around the world. For 52 days straight, we met amazing, joyful, loving, supportive people who gave whatever they had, or who just were encouraging. Because it's a crazy idea right across the country, and there are some encouraging people encouraging this crazy idea. But it was every day. And, the ratio of good to bad people, I mean, it was like there's no bad people there. It was like, and that's one
What
thing.
about the drivers?
Oh,
Certainly
yeah.
there's some drivers
So we had two drivers who switched out in the main vehicle this summer.
I was thinking about the drivers driving past you that always don't appreciate bikers.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple bad people maybe there.
Well, surprisingly, you'd think you went on a bike ride for 8 weeks, and you'd think, there's some kind of accident. Somebody had to get hit or something, because that's a lot of hours on a bike on the road with people. Nobody ever got hit. Nobody ever got bumped. I mean, there's a few close calls with people, yell, "Get off the road, you don't belong here," whatever. But, overall, there wasn't that many. It was really surprising to me. But it's almost like there's this bubble around this protect this hand,
right?
This protecting hand, because not only was it like drivers, which amazed me that there wasn't any incidents with that, but we had one day, the entire 52 days of riding, that we had a 2-hour rain delay. 2-hour rain delay. That was it. Okay, we just rode 3,300 miles across the country. If we had one rain delay,
That's awesome.
That's unheard of. Like, how does that happen?
That's wild.
Yeah.
So you biked this summer. I heard maybe you're headed over there to Africa to see some of the work you're helping make possible.
Yeah, possibly. I'll be going to Africa to visit some of the refugee camps where the money went. So like I said, it was $629,000 that was raised. That went to 15 communities in Honduras and 5 refugee camps in Africa. So, Kevin, do you know that number of how many people roughly that was that were affected? I can't remember.
I'm not sure. I know in northern Uganda, we're providing safe water to about 150,000 refugees. And I was over there last June. It was amazing because at a time when last August, this refugee camp opened up called Bidi Bidi. and it's the world's largest refugee camp right now. They've got 270,000 refugees there, and certain days when it first opened, they were receiving 6,000 refugees from South Sudan every day. And we met this guy named Ali, who was about 29 years old, and said when he first arrived at the camp, they gave him a plot of land, and he would wake up at 6 a.m. to walk to get water. Went down to some borehole, had to wait in line with thousands of others, and wouldn't get back to his home that he had made, really a little shelter, until 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So basically spending all morning into the afternoon just trying to collect water.
Dirty water, right?
Dirty water, yeah, dirty water. And so it was awesome now because the projects that Water Mission had installed there, they were pumping 170,000 gallons a day in this one section of the camp I was at, distributed down through 20-something miles of distribution piping. And they had all these taps. So every health clinic, children's area, school, every couple hundred meters, there's an access point. And there was one probably less than 50 meters from his house. And so he just, whenever he wanted, he'd just go get water. Took maybe 10 minutes of his time. All the people in that area were benefiting from it.
And it's clean.
And it's clean.
And it's safe. And you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, just like you and I would drink. So we're out there drinking water with him from the tap. I mean, these guys are blown away. And one of the things that was inspiring to me was he now had this vision for how he could help improve life at the camp. Because he saw there was a lot of idleness in the youth, and he wanted to start this soccer field behind where he was living and help impact young people so they could, improve in their lives. But that would never be something he could really think about when he was getting there and having to spend all day walking to collect water. And so when you can provide this most basic need, now you've got all that extra time, and you're not getting sick from drinking the water, and that's when you can start to think about these other things like, hey, how can I go out and serve others? And I was talking to this Kenyan pastor once, and he's like, think about people at church, for yourself. Do you want to go out and reach out to your neighbors when you feel sick? No, you want to sit at home and lie on the couch. And so you provide someone's their health, and you're impacting their life in such a huge way where now you can start to dream about things that you want to do in your life, or you just have time at least to go out and do things. Go to school, get an education, go work, provide food for your family. I mean, all these things. So because water's so foundational,
absolutely,
the impact was amazing. And so it's neat you'll be able to see some of that, Scotty, when you get over there.
Yeah, and one thing I was thinking about when you're talking about that is kind of, water is opening this door and creating almost this ripple effect of what can I do for other people. And one thing that was amazing to see from this ride is, all these groups of people, all these kids I speak to, a lot of times they get it and they're like, what can I do? And so this ride wasn't only about raising money for Water Mission, which was amazing, but it was starting this ripple effect, this fire of kindness for other people so that they could see, man, this kid had a crazy idea and he just saved lives. What can I do? And they'll do something nice for somebody else and they're like, man, what can I do? And just think about that. That's crazy. What if this world was full of people thinking, what can I do? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Or just
That's
even this
idea.
country. What can I do? And that's a question I really like to ask a group of people when I'm speaking is, what can you do? What has God given you in your life for you to be able to do stuff for other people?
Right. Yeah, and people listening, certainly, I mean, something right now is going to come into somebody's mind, and who knows, it could be the seed that ends up sprouting into a bigger idea, a year from now or 2 years from now, and that may spring into something else.
And an idea is never too small and never too crazy. All right, this started out as a birthday party. And there's just a ride across the country that raised over $630,000 from a birthday party. All right.
That's where all great things begin, man.
Right.
Birthday parties.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's crazy to think. What
kind of cake did y'all have?
It came from this tiny little idea, this tiny little mustard seed, and grew into this huge, amazing idea. Now thousands of lives are changed instead of a few from a birthday party. And that road was not easy. But the whole time, where's your motivation and where's your strength? And that's the big question. Because my strength came from God. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things. That's where my strength was. What was my why? Because people were dying. And I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do something about it. And we're all going to have a different why, but our how is always going to be the same, which is amazing, that we see a need and where we're at. In America, we're so blessed and we don't see it. We're all concerned about our new shoes, our new clothes, our new phone, the newest, greatest thing. When our phone's not working, we get upset.
Yeah, we're kind of so saturated with the conveniences that we lose sight of the necessities that we get to enjoy.
And it's so much different here. It's crazy to think that there's somebody in a different country who doesn't have a phone. There's no way they're gonna have a phone. They don't have shoes. Yeah, they have clothes, but they're tore up. And we're worried about what? What? It's crazy. And we're all given things in our lives that are tools to be able to change other people's situation. And we're talking about water here, but this doesn't just apply to water. It applies to everyday life. It applies to food, whatever the need is that the listeners have on their heart. Go for it.
Yeah. There was a movie years ago called Yes Man. It had Jim Carrey as the actor. And I thought as soon as I watched it, I was thinking about how, man, I want to be a yes man for God and just say yes to whatever God does. And applying that to another talk I heard from Bill Hybels, he said, I think God's implanted into everybody's spirit or whispered into their ear the solution to pretty much every ill there is out there in the world. But
that's a good thought.
Typically people start to question it and they say, oh, that's not really God, or oh, that sounds crazy. And so they just question them to death, or they just hold them in and they never share them with a friend just to get someone else's feedback too.
You just have to answer the door. There's going to be this knocking.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, you just got to answer.
Even if it feels uncomfortable,
Even if it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
I was 8 years old. All my friends were asking for, shoes, whatever, new clothes for their birthday party. And that birthday, I gave up all my gifts for other people. That's crazy. For other people.
Yeah.
But they're dying.
Yeah.
And what are we doing about it? And so, it's the people that you surround yourself with too. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have super supportive parents who were crazy enough to say, okay, let's go right across the country. Which we're not all going to have that. But you have to surround yourself with the right people. The people who are on those days where it's going to get tough, they're going to be like, come on, you got this. Why are you here? How are you here? Surround yourself with those people.
That's such a good point, because if you surround yourself with people who are negative or they're around you, it's just going to tear you down. And sometimes you're not going to have the faith in the moment, or you're going to be a little discouraged. And someone just giving you an encouraging word at that point, it can get you up off the couch to go and do whatever you need to do. So it's so critical when you think about the people around you, your friends, your family. I mean, some things you can't choose, like your family, especially if you're young, but your friend group. I mean, you're going to become like the average of all your closest friends around you. And so got to be intentional about that.
Yeah, and somewhere in that sort of, I mean, you're 13, so that's even before it normally happens, but somewhere in that sort of 15 to 18 realm, life begins to happen less to you, and you begin to happen more to life. So like you said, right now, if you're 13, most 13-year-olds, including you don't get to choose most things, although you're exercising a good bit of freedom, I'd say, and using your time wisely. But eventually, and it'll probably happen to you more before many other people, hopefully that changes, but eventually you get to determine your track and where you go. And when you come to forks in the road, you get to choose which direction you're going to go, because this isn't going to be chosen for you at some point. At some point, you have pretty much complete autonomy in your decisions. You don't necessarily get to choose the results of those decisions all the time, because you never know what'll happen, but you get to at least choose your decisions. And so I like that aspect that you hinted at. Mm-hmm. So we dude, Scotty, you just rocked like an hour. So we are unfortunately running out of time. So, but before we kind of close out with, final thoughts from you and where people can find you, maybe at least give Kevin and I an opportunity, maybe final question if we have any. Kevin, did you have any final question before we kind of start to close out?
I like what you said the other day to me. We were on the phone and we're talking about the conference happening in Columbia. And I was like, Scotty, this is a large group of people. I mean, it's going to be intimidating speaking in front of 2,000 people. And you told me something that has stuck in my mind ever since then that maybe you could share with the group. If you don't remember it, I can give you a teaser for it. But
I think it was along the lines of God's got this. It was kind of like
it was along the lines of, hey, these are my peers. And so speaking in front of my peers is even more intimidating. But when I'm feeling weak, God is my strength. Right. And I thought that was the most inspiring thing. And I literally typed that on my computer right then. And so how do you cultivate that spirit over and over? Like, is it as far as like devotional life and getting in the Word, what kind of habits do you try to instill there?
Well, so earlier when we were talking about training, those morning runs, well, I could probably get up at 7 and squeeze that in, but I get up much earlier, and along with breakfast is normally a devotional, which is normally shared with some of my, like either my mom or my dad, or sometimes even my whole family will get up and we'll do a devotional, and you just have to remember, no matter what, God's always there, and it also there, it circles back around to your friends. Surrounding yourself with those godly people who are gonna remind you, and a big thing for me is humility. Those people who knock you down off your high horse sometimes, and just those days where it's gonna get hard, give Him the glory. Those days when it's gonna be amazing, you're gonna have a great day, you're gonna win that race, give Him the glory. Some days you'll lose the race, give Him the glory. It's how are we here? That's the question. How? Because of Him. And so, why are we here? Because of Him. So, what else do you really need? Him. God. That's what we need. And so, something that I struggled with for a little while was, thinking I had it. Well, none of us have it. It's, you can have it for a little while, but you'll realize there's something missing. There's something big missing. And God is that missing thing. And so, no matter where you are, what you've done, God's always there with that hand outstretched to you. All you gotta do is grab it, and He'll do some crazy things in your life. You just gotta hang on for the ride. And so, when you're weak, He's strong. When you're strong, He's strong. But you just have to give Him the opportunity to show up and show out, and He will.
Booyah.
That's good. I don't know if he's going to be a professional cyclist or a pastor or what are the other options we came up with? I don't know. You follow in your parents' footsteps, be a surveyor. I don't know.
Maybe.
Sell T-shirts. Do whatever. Yeah. Hey, you could be an engineer with water. I can talk to you about engineering.
There you go.
Yeah. You just add flocculant and you this is as good as I got. About the flocculation and it's a water term.
Flocculation, filtration, chlorination. You get yourself safe water right there.
That's it. There you go.
You're ready to go.
There you go. Our teacher at the Citadel, he would be like, you just add the coagulant and then you flock the water out or something. I don't know. He would say it with a lot of emphasis though. I think it's supposed to be very funny.
Nice.
Awesome, man. Well, as my final question then, and then we'll give you some encouragement and ask you where we can find you. What would be your one to two pieces of advice or 1 to 2 areas of influence in your life, and faith is obviously a big part of that, but where would you like to point students, one or two areas of influence or of advice you'd like to give for those people, whether they're your age or even a little bit older or younger?
Yeah, so
anybody.
So no matter what your goal is, there's always going to be somebody who's done this before or who's doing that's a little bit farther along. And so finding a mentor is huge. And then not only a mentor, but having people around you, like in triathlon. I strive to put myself with people who are better than me because that keeps me humble and it gives me something to work towards. So that doesn't only apply to triathlon, it applies to everything in life. But a mentor is very important, and that's part of how this all happened. And then I'd say probably just your closest friends. Like I have 3 friends that I can always go to no matter what's there, and that doesn't apply only to the big things in life, but those days where school isn't going too well, you gotta have those people that you can fall back onto, and at the same time, those people are the people who come and knock you down when you're feeling large and in charge, which is important, especially for me, because sometimes I get very unhumble, but it's my parents and my friends that'll knock me right back down, which we should be humble, because how? Again, God. And so he's how, he's why, he's everything. Which, for those listening, if you're not a believer, check it out. It's something that will change your life, definitely. And, you can find somebody around you, I'm pretty sure, that's a believer, and just ask them questions, why? And they'll probably be able to tell you why. And they'll probably give you a way how to become a believer, and it'll change your life and the people's lives around you. It's crazy.
Yeah. Solid, man. Well, awesome. Well, as we wrap up, especially whenever people that are younger than me come on the show, just want to give you some encouragement. I know Kevin wants to give you some encouragement, and just love your passion with what you're doing, man. And like we said earlier in the show, you're only 13 right now, so stay on this track. If you can envision exponential growth from here, and who knows where it'll take you, the relationships it'll bring to you, people will reach out to you. You're definitely traveling a track that is not the norm, but by the same token, you're going to lead other people to want to travel a track that's not the norm. They may not do exactly what you're doing, but they'll do something. Mm-hmm. You don't want them to do exactly what you're doing. You want them to do what they want to do, and that's part of leadership. So want to encourage you to keep doing that. And I love that you mentioned find a mentor, because that was going to be what I'd encourage you to do. So whoever that, and you can have multiple, obviously Kevin is, I'm sure you consider him a mentor figure. Stay up to those mentors, because especially whenever you're sort of in this top tier in your age group, you've got to not only bring others up, but you still got to get fed somewhere. Right. And so keep reaching out. You got to stay intentional too, because don't expect the mentors to necessarily reach out to you all the time. They should a little bit, and they should follow up, but they won't reach out to you all the time. So never feel like you're going to bug your mentor too much. If you feel that way, I don't know if they should be your mentor. So even my high school mentor, an engineering figure, who I almost went mechanical because of him, but scholarship led me to civil anyway. So even called him the other day. Even I'm 27 now, so 10 years later, I'm still keeping up with one of my original mentors. So of course it took me until I was like 17 to get someone that I called a mentor. 13, I don't know. I had a youth group leader though. That was kind of similar.
That's always a great guy to go to.
Yeah, for sure. So that'd probably be my encouragement. I'll defer to Kevin.
Yeah, I just echo a lot of those things, and I'm always inspired by people like you, just your constant reliance on God and not being afraid to go for big goals. And I think it was good to hear about thinking, hey, what's next? That's something that caused a little bit of fear, and not sure where that might take you. And so continuing to not be afraid to dream big and see where God might want to take you. And in the end, it's not even about what types of things that you can accomplish in the world, because God cares so much more about your character than the things that you can accomplish. And he's going to accomplish his will on this earth, and it's just a privilege for us to kind of be a part of that.
It's good perspective.
So continue to dig in there, and God's got big things, and who knows, maybe the biggest thing you ever do is just inspire some kid right now, or at some speaking event that you do, and they go on to change the world in even bigger ways than we ever could. Like, that's the ultimate goal of a parent, is, man, that your kid goes on to do way bigger things than you ever would. And so you're sowing that seed, and keep it up. It's awesome to see.
Solid, man. Hey, do you want to be found? Where can people find you online? Do you have an Instagram, a snap a ding dong, chat a thing, a majig? I got like none of it.
So we have a Scotty's Ride Facebook and Instagram, and it's at Scotty's Ride. And then if you have any really questions about Water Mission or the ride itself, you can go to scottysride.com. And I believe there's a link to Water Mission's page if you really want to know more about Water Mission. But really, my whole story is on there. So if you missed anything today, you could probably find it on there. And if not, you can reach out to me through Facebook or Instagram. I'll be happy to talk and, maybe even become your mentor if you really need one. And just wrapping up, you're never too young, you're never too old, and you're never in the wrong place. God can use you wherever you're at, and he's always there, no matter how hard it gets. Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. We were meant to live for so much more, and we lost ourselves.